Yeah, what's going on? Thanks for hanging in there. NBC The Game Live, coming at you this afternoon from the island of Formosa, aka Taiwan, the real District 13. Good to have you, everyone. Good to have you, man. Man and woman. Yeah. Was that the Big Dipper? I think it was the Big Dipper leopard print. What's going on, leopard print? Good to see you. Um, don't dip out on me yet, though. What's up, Vengeful Truther? Yeah, man, I had to get that off. The music makes everything happen. Right, the soundtrack to our life. What's going on, Lady Luck? Always a pleasure. Good to have you. I know I love that Pink Floyd too. You know, any color you like. Breathe sets the mood. Mood music, definitely. What's up, Shifty One? Good to see you. Yeah, trippy, man. You don't smoke, so you got to get high some way, right? Shout out to everyone. Twin Shadow Buddha, what's going on, man? Good to have you. NPC the Locksmith. I'm gonna start calling you clones affectionately. NPC Locksmith Clone, what's up, man? We got True Life Stories, Mel Pandora, Baron Trump, Provo, The Machine Lies, The Shadow Buddha. We got my pack. We got Trinity on the left. We got Junior, the Sheba in the middle. And we got Dream in the right there. Then we got Flow State in blackface. Remember he was saying he was in blackface at some college party. I'm like, fuck it. Let me give him a shiesty or or it can be a blackface, whatever. We got Rusto, Chesto, and we got Sarah up there, right? These are some of the panels that I frequent that we all like to check in and tap in with, right? I probably like to do it to keep it's just to keep away from some of these existential questions I have about life, you know. Because essentially, what is psychology? I know some people in the panelverse, they call it a soft science, right? It's real enough though, because when you look at what the old definition or the first definition of this word psychology is, it comes from the word psyche and logos, which means soul and study. So, respectively speaking, in ancient terms, psychology was the study of the soul. It was, right? It is. A lot of folks, most humans nowadays do believe in some type of metaphysical aspect of life. And I think in terms of psychology, because this is something that we studied in college. I was very close to becoming a psychologist. The therapy needs to acknowledge this aspect of the metaphysics in life. I think this is when you get psychology and spirit merging. This is why shamanism is a big thing, I think, nowadays. And this is why some people probably can't take what I'm talking about right now, because it may be a little bit too much for you, but that's okay. Whatever, take from it as you will, right? That's the most important thing you could do. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, when you think about it, to exist with sentience, that's a consciousness, means, in a sense, I'm looking at it from the Buddhist way, I guess. So shout out to Buddha, shout out to you. It's to exist means to carry the burden of awareness, right? That begins with helplessness when you're born, because you're born by yourself, right? And then it ends with death, and you die by yourself. I mean, you can have family around you for sure, but it's in these quiet moments, in the quiet moments when after I broke up from my last girlfriend before I got married, and I moved out of our plush condo on Foster City and moved into a 1 bedroom bachelor startup apartment where I would just stare at the walls all day and all night when I was home from work, working my job. Right? It was in those quiet moments when the world seems to fade to a hum. You heard that hum, that backdrop, the score of life. I think it's there is where we're left alone in the truth that one day we will cease to exist. And the older you get, you start knowing about how fragile your body is and the impermanence of the future. All this points to an end that we can't evade. Yet, I think in this meditation of death, as you call it, or transition, I think that there's lies in an opportunity or an invitation not to get scared and retreat, however, but to engage with it fully, right? Because death is it's a finality, but it shapens the edges of life. It makes it come alive. It reminds us that the time we have is precious, and it urges us to live more deliberately, hopefully with your hearts open and your fears acknowledged but not obeyed. You know, when I think about existential psychology, and I used to practice this when I was in the Stormy Weather Existential Detective Agency writer collective, basically artist collective. Um, Existential psychology is more like a therapy mode or model, and it's a psychology that works directly with patients. And you probably, if you've been to therapy before, you probably have experienced it because it's used in situations such as counseling and clinical psychology, and it's essentially it it works with four aspects of a person's experience. Death is one, meaning is another, isolation is another, and last, freedom. So, because if you think about it, conflicts in a person arises when uh, we can't come to terms with one of these, and then the goal is, if you're a psychologist, an existential psychologist, or using that mode anyways, to guide the person through their own experience so they can find freedom from this existential conflict that we have called awareness, life, death, rebirth. Yeah. I mean, it sounds heavy, but it is if we think about it. And this is probably why some of us do things. I'm not saying everyone, some of us do these things like paneling and whatnot for that reason, right? And it's definitely not easy to to practice this kind of therapy, and you can do it like an armchair psychologist on yourself, I guess, which a lot of us do anyway, because it's like a lot of the topics are sombering and like not fun, especially when you're talking about things like in a psychological context such as death and loss and loneliness. I mean, it just sometimes just talking about it can create more anguish if the person isn't ready to touch on those things yet. However, for those of us who have the grit and willingness to go there, it can be very fulfilling experience. And if you honestly go about it, hopefully you can come to terms with such deep topics, right? Some of the deepest topics, right? Like feeling alone and feeling out of control. Um, it actually can be very freeing to do this type of work on yourself. I think the new age work they say is called shadow work or whatnot. You know, yeah. I think we touch on it on panels and stuff a little bit. Like Mel Pandora had a cool stream yesterday about what happens after you die. You know, what happens after you die. I don't know. What do you think, chat? What do you think happens when you die? That's pretty heavy to ask, but fuck it. You're big boys and girls. What do you think happens? Hmm? Nothing? Does your consciousness live on and keep going on in the vastness of the universe? Or does it just cease to exist? Does it not have meaning? Um, who knows? Do you encounter archons? Yeah. Do you encounter the Buddhist archons we talked about in episode 57 of the Book of Gabriel live stream, NPC the game? Those Buddhist archons, those devas sitting up there playing games with you, right? Trying to keep you trapped in this prison planet. That's one narrative. I don't know. I hope not. El Perro with the comment, when I die, I'm gonna start hunting the shit out of my haters. Haunting them. Yeah, man. Don't let them go. Right? You can even yell at them. Oh shit, I didn't even put that up yet. Fuck it. Damn it. I gotta do that next time. But yeah. Hotep, yeah, Hotep, all that. Greetings. How you doing? The vengeful truther said, "I believe I will go to sleep until the day of judgment, where Jesus will judge my life." Yeah, yeah, I have that modality. Um, yeah, you go to sleep and you wake up. Islam is kind of similar in the sense that, yeah, you'll be asleep and you wake up, and you'll be judged. In their case, it's by Allah, just you and him. And Tupac talked about it in one of his songs. Basically, rewind your life and watch it, right? And if you're a humble person and a good person, Allah will grace you with the fact that He'll put a bubble, a covering over you, so while you're being judged, no one else can see you being judged and watching your life in those cringe moments, especially, right? This is why in Islam, I think, um, one is not supposed to tell other people their faults, because it's like kind of like telling on yourself double, because either way you're gonna have to go over it in the day of judgment, right? Interesting things, yeah. Leopard Princess, I think we just be will just be for a while pure energy. I don't know. Pure energy's flying around from here to there. Perhaps, huh? Yeah. I like that one. Vengeful Truth for going to heaven is a common cope for Christian. That's not how it works, unfortunately. Yeah. It was here and there, you know, you die, quote unquote, die, and you're there. What consciousness goes there, though? You, right? Your soul? What's your soul? Is it made up of many different things? Your memories only? Is that what the soul is? Huh? I don't. This is a lot of big questions out there, existential questions. Going to heaven. It sounds fun to go to heaven, right? But like we said, there's the different modalities of people gripping with in an existential crisis, we could say, about life. I'm thinking about life, and one of them is death, right? Death. What's up? Oh, there you go. Godheart Guardian. What's up, Mod? Uh, Reabsorption and recalibration of sorts. Yeah, a recycling, huh? Apero, die is a false term. It's more accurate to say pass on. Yes, that's what I usually say. As a respect for me personally, when I'm speaking of great people like my mom, Anita, I said she passed on, or so and so passed on, right? Because yeah, they passed on to the next one, whatever else they got going on. Let's see what this existential therapist has to say about death.
Death is unique to human beings. As far as we know, we are the only species capable of thinking symbolically. We can abstract away from the immediate now of raw experience. We exist temporally in the simultaneity of a remembered past, a lived present, and an imagined or anticipated future. We can explicitly consider actualities and possibilities. These capacities, as part of self-aware consciousness, mean that we have an awareness of our own death, both as an ever-present possibility and as an unavoidable part of life.
This is like Andrew Wilson's cousin or something. This does this do one think of, because tomorrow we have the stream, live stream. Shout out to me for doing like 7 straight live streams, trying to get it in, something like that. But we have the dog is God spelled backwards stream. About, we want to hear about your dogs or your pets, what's really going on, and how interesting they are when you really look at them, and how interested they seem to be with as masters of human nature, right? Um, oh shit, he said, "What I eat at brunch?" Now, thanks for asking that. See, he's on the continuity. Con, well, he was listening from yesterday. They were listening. Yeah, I went to brunch yesterday with the family for Lunar New Year's year with the snake. It was a very nice outing I had with my son and my wife. We went up to the Loft Hotel, and after we went to the Sky Bar, I overlooked the whole city. I saw the port. We overlooked the port of Tainan where the Dutch took their ships and sailed in um, from Europe, and then they made their little base over here in the city I live in right now, and dealt with the Aboriginal people and the Qing Dynasty, Han Dynasty, the Han Chinese people in Taiwan. So yeah, that was a nice experience. The food wasn't very good though. Right? That shows it wasn't very good. It was okay. They had some pasta, seafood pasta, and some other. What else did I hate? Basically, I just ate that with some salad. But yeah, the experience was great though. And then after, they had a Street Fighter video game um, in the front of the lobby where us three were playing. Myself, Ben, and Rebecca. We were playing each other Street Fighter. That was fun, bringing back memories. So it's about the experience, right? Experiences, right? Um, being together, not isolated, doing something together as a family, like we're doing something here, right? As a streamer, chatters, and the host, we're all communing right here and now. Thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, yeah, almost over this cold. Let's see. I'm curious about Taiwanese food options when I'm going out. I mean, it's good. It's a lot of. I think it tastes better than traditional Chinese food. They got a lot more carbs and stuff. That's good. We'll check it out. I'll let you know some. Maybe I'll do a whole broadcast about that. Yeah. So I'm asking about the animals. Like tomorrow we're gonna do the animal broadcast. Do animals have consciousness of their awareness of their death? You think? You think they think about that like us humans? Some people think we're animals with the divinity of an angel. I don't know. Let's see.
We can't escape death and we know it, which is both a gift and a curse. It's a gift because our awareness of our own mortality is the condition that makes life so precious and meaningful. It's the ultimate insurance against taking our lives and other people for granted.
That's true, right? The reason why a lot of us do take life for granted, I mean, don't take life for granted, is because we know how finite it is, either from near death experiences, witnessing death around us through loved ones and friends, or, man, death is everywhere. You just look at the movies we watch, even, and the video games we play, and in our language, the way we talk about it. And yeah, it makes you think. Maybe entertainment is taming your inner G, your inner God, which is your God is knowledge of good and evil, or life and death, right? But the entertainment will make you forget about how real it is and how death is always around the corner, right? It could happen at any moment to any of us. Maybe that's why so many people, and I have in the past, I'm learning, I wasted my time. Granted, wasted my time with good people, but still wasting time because I haven't been remembering how precious life is.
We all know many who've had near death experiences, and they tend to undergo fundamental shifts in how they experience themselves within time. Their finitude becomes palpable, and time is no longer guaranteed or something to be assumed. They tend to reevaluate life projects, goals, and priorities. And so the workaholic business exec begins to question the necessity of working long hours at the expense of time with family and friends. And
Yeah, man. So many people push hard for their children, but they don't even spend time with them. Before they know it, they about to check out, and they haven't really even spent time with their family. They do it for their family, make the money, but they actually don't enjoy it with them. I have to say, and I've heard about the Rainbow Bridge. Supposedly, that's the one narrative of where the pets go. It's a beautiful narrative, right? The Taiwanese Aboriginals believe something similar. That when they're warriors, when they fight with honor and dignity and courage, they cross a rainbow bridge to heaven. Yeah.
whether owning a Porsche will really make him or her happy. A healthy awareness of death is perhaps the ultimate source of humility. It prevents us from taking ourselves and our superficial desires and wants too seriously. And so we're less likely to get bent out of shape if someone doesn't like us or if we don't own the fancy new iPhone that our friends have. Because in the grand scheme of things, it really doesn't matter. Death levels us all. Conversely, it allows us to be patient and to savor the moments we have. Instead of frantically worrying about the future and being stressed about how things are, we can just bask in the amazement that things are at all.
At least you're here. Well, I hope I wasn't muted the whole time. Sorry about that, guys.
The sight of a beautiful vista or the sensation of a cool breeze on a summer day is something to be cherished. A healthy awareness of our limited time also ensures a more authentic prioritization of one's values, life goals, and even a capacity for noticing and attending to raw sensory experience. An awareness of death, paradoxically, allows us to feel more alive. Now, as much as death awareness is a
Does make you more, you contrasted it. And when you're close to death, makes you cherish life.
gift, it is in many ways also a curse. It's the ultimate end to our cherished relationships, life projects, and visceral experiences that we
That's
usually
all good,
take for
Jess.
granted. This is a terrifying possibility, made all the more so when we recognize that it could happen at any time. We don't know when it's coming. Even the healthiest of people are known to have died in ways that are tragic, unpredictable, or even absurd. This means that we each carry a tremendous amount of anxiety or potential anxiety about our own mortality. Inauthentic ways of dealing with this dilemma can lead to debilitating anxiety or feeling numb or psychologically restricted in how we live our lives. Existential therapists may be interested in exploring how a client confronts the transiency of life in a way to help them live more fully. So that's a short introduction to
So yeah, I can see that therapy, the existential therapy, in terms of addressing the concept of death and how that's a lot. It brings a lot of people anxiety when they overthink about it. How bringing it up in a realistic way and in a way that that's easy to talk about. Uh, because that death it is part of a human's experience. No matter how many ways we want to push it down and put it out of the way, it definitely is, right? Just like what they say, meaning is one of those modalities too, right? And isolation. You want to find meaning, especially like I said earlier, about in this vastness of the universe we live in. Uh, Meaning a lot of times, especially when you're younger, is neither offered to you or it's not really implied by those around us unless you have some conscious parents maybe or some peers, right? You have to find meaning in life yourself. Meaning or purpose, you can say. I mean, as growing up, I longed to find my purpose uh, because with the life about how comfortable it can be for a lot of us, we kind of some of us we need a reason to push forward, right? We need a reason, right? A lot of people will say, "Fuck it, why should we?" Like we said before, death is certain, right? Uh, Life is uncertain in itself, so why should I push on? But when you have meaning or purpose, it gives you something to strive for. Because the way I see it is probably the greatest act of defiance is to create your own purpose. It is to weave um, our lives, even our lives here, into like a narrative that uh, sustains all of us, that we can all engage in, right? And all of us can get something from it. We don't have to agree on everything. And when we have a purpose, it kind of makes all this organic chaos into something we can understand. Because when you have a purpose, all your choices and your relationships and your actions kind of have a place to reside in, right? And it does make way for love and kindness when you have a purpose. You're not just running around with your head cut off. That's the way I see it anyway. Yeah, that's the way I see it. So that whole um, purpose and meaningless modality. I remember I used to ask people that all the time. How do you find your purpose? I don't know. How do you think you find your purpose, guys? In the chat, how do you find purpose in an otherwise meaningless existence? Yeah, I'm curious. I'm so curious. I'll drop the link in a little bit, but I'm just curious of what you think in the chat. How do you find meaning?
The problem of meaning is unique to human beings
Back to Andrew Wilson Jr.
in that we are meaning-hungry, meaning-seeking creatures. We want our lives to have some ultimate value or purpose. The problem is that the world as it stands is silent. It has no answers. There are no predetermined scripts for us to follow. This is what some existential thinkers call the absurd, and it's another source of potential anxiety that we must deal with in some way. More often than not, culture provides us with ready-made scripts to follow. In Western societies, meaning and purpose is effectively reduced to the attainment of money and material goods. We aspire to have fancy cars, designer jeans, and the newest technology.
Yeah, man, I'm trying to get a G-Wagon, a Range Rover. I'm trying to get a mansion. I'm trying to go to Tahiti, have a bungalow looking over the clear water. Trying to do all that, Trying to live life to the fullest. That's what we think, man. Trying to get a bad bitch. you know, is that what brings you meaning in life? I mean, maybe it's motivation, like we talk about purpose, right? Well, I don't know. What brings you purpose? What motivates
And so if
you?
you have the latest gadget or Nike sneakers, you're somehow a worthy or important person. On the contrary, if you can't afford to keep up with the latest arbitrary fashions, you risk humiliation, rejection, or just being plain invisible to others.
That's probably why a lot of us, or some of us in the past, have, because we knew the black pill in terms of your self-awareness that maybe at this moment, me getting those living that Gucci $5 million dollar mansion lifestyle ain't gonna happen right now. So to make me cope, I can say fuck the riches, fuck getting after it. I'm gonna be a quote unquote hippie and just drift off through life like a amoeba in the ocean, being pulled by the tides of whatever the conscious whims of the universe brings me, right? Or God, right? Or something like that. The coping, right?
You're less significant. Inauthentic ways of dealing with the problem of meaning typically involve subscribing to a belief system or an implicit ideology, which is thereafter taken up as an unquestioned guide for living. It's usually unconscious, and it typically involves some kind of group identification or conformity. We effectively find ourselves doing what one does in a particular society, culture, or group without ever questioning its authenticity or validity.
Does that go down we can say paneling, right? Does that go on here? A lot of the things we do is like mechanic, or whether we're the host or the panelist. Do we just talk and not really question what we're saying? Because a lot of times I've seen myself, and I'm trying to grow. I'm growing from this, as just listening long enough so I can talk about what I want to talk about, and not necessarily asking questions to the other panelists or the hosts about what do they really think about what's really going on, and then building on them. And then they do the same to me, and we have like a building, like we're building a house from the foundation, getting higher and higher up to some apex moment, maybe, That doesn't usually happen. I don't see too much. Paneling is more, not always, but it's more you getting whatever you feel like you want to get off. Sometimes some of this shit doesn't even have anything to do with the topic, right? Um, Yet nobody's really slowed down and questioned these things, the modality of the group or the purpose of the group, or if the group has any purpose at all. That we get. I heard people keep saying they get in a loop, a holding period pattern, right? How many of y'all are stagnated, feel stagnated about the Paddleverse, right? Is it getting boring? Is there any creators out there that are actually trying to push the envelope or uh, make something maybe a bit out the box than what you normally see? Shout out to the Raging Patriot. There he is. Yeah, good to see you, man. Yeah, I do it all the time. Yeah, I see you doing it. Yeah, I see you're doing it today. You do it all the time, but it's not very common. Nope, that's why it stands out. Sometimes, Vengeful Truther says, sometimes you just got to live at life to find out. Absolutely. Probably most of the time in this day and age. Well, you may be like, fuck it. I wish my parents would have shown me how to do this and that. When in fact, you are your parents. Whether you had great parents or no parents or horrible parents, you have to be your parent today, your guardian. What's going on, KDK, from the great country of Finland and beyond? Good to have you. Yeah. Vengeful Trooper. Yeah, panel condos evolve depending on what you're talking about. Exactly. Build, 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 build on top of each other. That's what we want to see. Back to Andrew Sr., not Junior.
As part of that group, we feel a sense of belonging as well as a sense of meaning through adhering to its values. Part of the problem is that in taking these beliefs or values for granted, we never question their true worth. Another issue is that those holding contradictory values or beliefs threaten our sources of meaning, and so we tend to be dismissing, critical, or even hostile toward those with very different belief systems.
Shit, man. This keeps going on. What was I saying? Damn it. I gotta say that again. Mm. Oh, a lot of folks can be hypocritical and try to come off as very self-righteous. Like me right here. I'm talking all this shit, trying to tell you, trying to, with my heart and my mind, trying to help you see what I'm working through so you can become a better person and as I am too. Because what is a true brother and sister is what is someone that you want the best for, same as you, right? I mean, but I can be self-righteous and shit, but then what if half the time I'm talking shit about other people just because they don't believe what I think or whatever, you know? I think I'm worse. I can be worse. Be in that case, I might be even worse than the people I'm talking shit about. I get it. We learn through negation and whatnot. But when is negation enough? When have we done it too much? So much so that all you're doing is hating, and we don't know what you're loving, right? What are you made of? What are you trying to build? You know, right? Maybe you can try critiquing and criticizing the person's ideas instead of the person in general. right? Criticize their or analyze their philosophy of life, which is their religion, their personal religion. Yeah. But we'll take it another step further, even further. In doing so, um, a lot of times these spaces they're just talking about philosophies and in theory, but not talking about practice, how they engage in these things that they're sharing. It's almost as like they're only in the abstract and not in the concrete, right? Capricorn, Capricorn sun, something sun sign Capricorn would be in the earth sign and dealing with the material realm. This is why in the people in the medieval times they used to believe it was the old Satan, right? The Capricorn, the goat, the sea goat. But here's the thing: if you're only talking about theories and and not practice, you're kind of wasting your time, right? You and like before we said you can waste your time with good people. You can also waste your time with good ideas if you don't put them into practice. Back to Andrew Wilson Sr. What's going on, crazy mama? I'm always on mute. Yeah, probably because I should listen more than I should speak. I just want to play music, huh? I make movies and videos and streams, so I was an excuse to play my soundtrack of life. I got some jewels sometimes too, though.
Because they give us a sense of value, identification, and self-worth, we're sometimes willing to defend our worldviews at all costs. In fact, these existential issues related to death and meaning have been heavily researched and are hypothesized to be involved in many world conflicts. But in addition to superficial sources of meaning, cultures can provide us with plenty of distractions so that we never have time to think too deeply or feel too much about either the problem of death or meaning.
Took it off mute. Rizla, what's up, man? Good to see you. Top notch streamer who does think deep. He's one of those streamers that definitely. Uh, I don't think. I don't think entertainment is the top priority for him. Even though he's entertaining, his streams are entertaining. There seem to be like kind of like what I'm what I'm trying to do in a sense. I'm trying to show you the things I'm working through and learning, kind of showing, improving, and teaching, you know. But while asking you guys, what do you think about it? What's your experience with it? Not all theory, right? Because because what can happen, like Andrew Senior's saying right here, uh, what can happen a lot of times is we can lull ourselves away with entertainment as a distraction from real issues that are going on in life. One example of this is if you ever had a loved one pass away and some or had a very bad breakup. Um, what's one of the things you want to do? You want to fucking just maybe just watch a movie or just marathon a TV series, right? Eat a whole bunch of ice cream or whatever you like to eat in order to distract yourself, right? But in terms of that example of a loved one passing away, that loved one passing away, you want to call it death, we say passing away. It's actually an opportunity to get into reacquainted with something that's with you all the time, you know, in a graceful way, right? But it's much easier to distract yourself from that existential part of life. Existential just means life experience.
Examples include video games, movies, television, and useless things that we find on the internet, which keep us comfortably ignorant or distracted in a numb compliance with the larger sociocultural narrative.
Kind of sounds like some of the streams I've had in the past with the Panelverse. Like I was doing the Crash Out stream. It was fun. We literally, some of those people probably died doing stupid shit. But it is a cope, I guess, from thinking about some of these existential things like death and one and also two finding meaning and purpose out of life.
The question of meaning is important. It is that for the sake of which we predicate and structure our lives. When we deny or repress the problem of meaning by failing to ask important questions, we find ourselves psychologically anesthetized. It involves a restriction in one's personality and way of being in the world. An existential therapist may help their clients identify inauthentic sources of significance and help them wrestle with the problem of meaning so that they can live in congruence with authentic sources of value and purpose as appropriated by the self-aware individual. That's all for
Yeah, you definitely when you do have that meaning and a purpose in life, it makes it come alive. It animates life. You're not just, like I said earlier, you're not just going through life like that amoeba on the ocean, going with the stream of consciousness. You're actually you may have some ambition in trying to get done what you feel like you have to do because you know from earlier we spoke about death. There's only a finite amount of time you have. You don't take it for granted, right? I mean, you still want to have fun and whatnot, but it having purpose and meaning definitely kicks up your life a couple notches. Leopard print with the comment, my NPC, my existential therapist, Loki. Yeah, man. I mean, shit, did it on myself and the Stormy Weather Existential Detective Agency, where all we did, the group did, this private group of artists and writers, we would just journal about our lives. I did it for 6 months straight, every day, just the facts, right, about what I did, right? Didn't really analyze it and put it in a private group, right? We paid money to do this too, and your other trusted group members could look at your journal and pick out things in your life that they see patterns, right? Because what we're doing is looking for pattern recognition. Because the patterns are kind of like what keeps you away from a lot of times from these traumas or realizations of these existential things in your life, right? Like isolation, death, fear of not having enough freedom or purpose in your life, right? The patterns kind of keep you out of that, protect you from that. Um, but we wanted to go into those wounds, into those patterns and see what comes out of it. While at the same time, we were looking at our lives on a mythical scale, seeing how, um, if you look at the journal, it's not just mundane things are happening in your life every day, going to work or even streaming or going to the store, going to a football game. No, these are actually epic, mythical events happening in your life that for example, if you have a good working relationship with some of the mythologies and stories throughout history about cultures, you can see how your life might, if you're a woman that's giving birth or whatever, might match up with the goddess Nut in Egypt, the sky goddess, or how if you're trying to get that sought after position in your corporation, how that can be very comparable to the struggle of Hercules in finding his purpose. But you got to know the mythology as well, so you combine the mythology and with your journaling of your mundane life, and you'll have a mythical existential narrative, right? That you'd be shocked about the things you're doing when normally you wouldn't even pick these things out in your life. It's pretty dope. It is pretty dope. Um, this is what I do here. That's the goal. That's what I'm about. The existential Uncle Fatty, the existential imagination by Frederick Carl. 17 bucks online. I think I might have to peep that. Thanks for sharing. So some of these existential questions we have that people muse over or try to hide through their patterns, which are just experiences of life we already spoke on, or death and um, lack of having meaning or purpose in your life. The other one that's um, on most people's minds, either subconsciously or consciously, is isolation, because isolation tends to haunt all of us. Even as we stand here among others. We're here right now among at least 10 people who are showing themselves, 11 people counting me, not counting the ninja watchers. Um, and we still feel isolated, some of us. You can live in a city of 2 million like me, and maybe you can still feel like lonely. It's like you're there, but you're almost there, not quite there. Uncle Fatty with the comment, today is the full apex of the parade of planets, right? Each one of you in the chat represents a planet to me, right? That's how I look at it. Like this is the ballet or opera, space opera of the spheres here and now on Earth right now on NPC the game. Who are you? Do you represent Pluto? Great. Change that your personality uncovering things. Are you Mars? Are you fired up? Are you the moon goddess? Are you very nurturing and honest? Are you an Aquarian? Are you Uranus? Is that who you are? Are you a maverick, huh? Do you think outside the box? Are you avant-garde, right? Are you Saturn? Do you judge people? Do you value discipline and conservatism? And do you love status? Are you Venus? Are you beauty? Are you creative? Right? Are you Mercury? Are you intellectual? Do you love to communicate? See, all you people in my mind represent a planet, right? Moby say, what does Moby say? We're all made of stars. That song, yeah, something like that. What's going on, Mike? Mm. So that isolation, right? There's a there's a part of the self that remains locked away, even when you're around people that you love and are good friends. And and even if you have a strong connection, some people will never know that part of you, right? But that's okay. And even though we do feel isolated sometimes, I have to say there's still chances for authentic moments to happen. And it happens like when someone's vulnerable, when they drop the masks we wear, we truly allow ourselves to be seen, and we bridge that gap of that abyss of who you really are that usually keep locked away. What is a persona? It's used to wear, right? The persona. The actors used to wear a mask so they can see you in the amphitheater. The mask is your person. But are you a person? Are you just your personality, or is there something behind it? You know, there's a lot of big questions out there. So when you drop that persona or that mask, um, you're able to really love somebody and show them how you want to be loved. And hopefully it's an end to your isolation, even if it is for a brief minute, right? Moment to moment, because these are slices of life we're living in, right? That's what the present is just a slice of life that keeps going on and on, right? In this moment to moment that we're all sharing, when we definitely find a sense of shared humanity, and we can recognize that we are not alone. You know, if you look at things negatively, you can say, at least you're not alone in your suffering. There are other people suffering. Hopefully, everyone's laughing more than they're crying and whatnot. We can only hope, right? And so, in terms of isolation. Mr. Andrew Wilson Sr., his take on isolation.
Existential isolation is far more than just the physical separation from other people. To be human is to find ourselves at times experiencing a private and deeply personal stream of subjective thoughts, desires, intentions, and feelings. At any given moment, the first-person existential space that we take up has occupancy for one. Not only do I possess or claim ownership of this body in a way that no one else could, but I am the lead and sometimes sole author of possibilities that I appropriate as my own. Yet as much as we are differentiated from one another, the self and other are so deeply intertwined that parts of the self can only be experienced through the other. Take again, for example, my physical body. As much as it makes sense to say that I have ownership of this particular body, parts of it, such as my own head and face, are more familiar to others. I rarely encounter my own face in my everyday existence. It's like my experience of the world, at least visually, seems to appear where my head is not.
Yeah, it's similar to how do we learn about each other? We learn about ourselves through other people, how they react to us, right? This is why, if we're talking astrology, how the rising sign, which is your persona, how people see you, is how you learn about yourself, right? How they react to you. When in fact, people always say the sun sign, what month you were born, or whatever. That's the biggest tell about who your personality, what your personality is. But in fact, a lot of us think that it's your rising sign, your persona, which who you truly are, until you unlock what's behind that mask, who you are at your core. We learn from others constantly about ourselves.
So a part of me, my head or face, seems to flee from me, and yet it is me, as regularly experienced by significant others in my life who are able to see me in part as an object or a figure standing against a world of things. This awareness of being seen as a potential object for others changes our self-understanding. Imagine being in a room and thinking you're alone. You mutter to yourself, or you find yourself humming a ridiculous tune, and then suddenly realize that there's someone watching. You experience yourself being experienced by another, and this allows you to be seen as an object in their eyes, which leads to the possibility of guilt or shame. All of this heightens the tension between self and other, and the sense of existential entanglement as well as estrangement. Our being in the world is in part a being with others, but our first-person existence is also hopelessly differentiated from others. The terrible anxiety that arises in dealing with this existential isolation may lead to inauthentic ways of coping. Two strategies described by Sartre are the masochistic and the sadistic styles of relating to others. The masochist deals with the problem of differentiation by denying one's separateness from the world and from others. The person psychologically fuses or merges with another. They may anxiously cling to another and look to them to define them, to tell them what to do, how to live, to implicitly say what their worth should amount to.
We see this a lot nowadays. Do you see this in your life? Are you in a codependent relationship? I think a lot of relationships are codependent, but hopefully they're not extremely to the extreme. But it is what it is. Can you think about times when your relationship has been one-sided in the codependency? What side are you on? Yeah, or do you go back and forth? Right? Are you the needy one, or are you the one that gives help that needy person meet their needs? I don't know.
And so on. It's a denial of the differentiated self. This kind of individual is spared the dread of existential isolation by reducing oneself to an object and fusing with the other. They refuse to take a stand on their own being and sacrifice their possibilities for the ones appropriated by the other. The sadist deals with the problem of differentiation by denying the other as a self, by reducing him or her to an object or thing to be humiliated, manipulated, or controlled. They refuse to recognize that they are partly defined by the other and deal with the problem of existential isolation by denying the other and world. Feelings of powerlessness and existential isolation are dealt with through an illusion of dominance and control. With the other reduced to an object, the sadist's sense of self is artificially inflated, but they fail to relate to others as a whole. Yalom suggests that masochism and sadism are two sides of the same coin. One seeks security by being swallowed by another, and the other by swallowing someone else. The existential
The commonality would be security. They both want security. They just have different means of getting there.
therapist recognizes that we must all walk this fine line between differentiation and connection and deal with the anxieties involved in this unbridgeable chasm between our own lived existence and that of others. I hope you enjoyed this and the other introductions.
Yeah, man. I think this definitely, this life I'm living taught me early on uh, the value of being dependent on somebody, maybe overly dependent. And the second half of my life is more about having people depend on me, right? Uh, Either way, especially this new way of being, which is like more in the mode of Aries, being assertive and whatnot. The opposite would be codependent Libra, needing the other. But being assertive definitely makes it so I really never feel isolated, even in my own thoughts when I'm by myself, because I'm always working something out or trying to get better, most of the time anyway, right? There's no time. I never really feel alone like I used to when I used to worry so much about um, how's this person going to help me do this and that, which would cause a lot of stress when in fact, um, thinking about it in the other modality of thinking about how to solve the problem myself made it no time to be lonely, because in the end I'm kind of like having a conversation with myself, kind of like what Uncle Fatty was saying right there, you know. Yeah, you like that swallow? Yeah, it's very yes, it stood out to me as well, right? So what are these existential experiences that most of us think about, that some of us cope either by paneling or working our job or doing all these things at once? These existential experiences are that we try to, a lot of people don't think about, but some of us, ones that have true grit, we contemplate these things are death, um, search for meaning and purpose, isolations, right? Then the last one we're going to talk about is freedom. Freedom. Do you think about that? Are you free? Are you a real free person? What does freedom mean to you? Give me a definition of freedom if you can in the chat. What does it mean? Freedom, the power or right to act or speak or to think as one wants. The state of not being imprisoned or enslaved. Do you get to think about what you want? Are your own thoughts really yours? Are you doing what you want, more or less? Do you wish you had more freedom? Or is it something you don't even ever really thought about until right now? Well, thoughts? Okay. It was me. Freedom is something that's big. I mean, we're it's shoved down our throats. It's programmed into us as an American, right? You definitely have boundless potential in freedom, but that can be seen as both a gift and a burden, right? Remember the first time I looked at Napster, the video sharing, music sharing website where you can pick any song you want. My friend told me about it at Santa Clara University. We were like looking at the music. I'm like, okay, what song it's gonna be exciting. I can pick any song I want. But then when I got to the keyboard and the search, I didn't know what to put. It was overwhelming, right? Right. KDK with the comment, freedom to think and do what I want and to express my thoughts. Yes, exactly. Right. And I would add even to travel where I want physically, because you already expect the mental travel, because you can travel to far off land, Sagittarius, overseas with your thoughts as well. This is why the Sagittarius archetype has to do with physically traveling to far off lands overseas, but also philosophy, thinking far off thoughts that you normally wouldn't. Right? Freedom to act upon critical thought. I like that. Uncle Fatty, the freedom to shit on the right of others is not liberty. Freedom isn't free. Freedom to me equals the ability to think critically and cognitively. Leopard print, freedom is peace. Time to do what I want. Freedom is the ocean, the ultimate freedom. I'm talking about Pisces earlier. That's the ultimate freedom. Pisces is the ocean of consciousness that we all take a dip back into probably when we pass on and when we emerge from it when we're born. That we're experiencing right now too as we speak and commune together here. Leopard print, letting go of materialism is freedom. Music shows our freedom. Absolutely. Dance like there's no one watching. That's freedom. Damn, I missed the ocean. Yeah, you're in the mountain mode lately, huh, brother? Ocean is great. I live on an island. It's everywhere. Each choice we make sends, we're talking about the ocean, ripples, right? Through the ocean, through the lives we live. And it carries with it the responsibility, which is a weight on ourselves sometimes. And those we've chosen to love have to bear that weight too. I think to be free is to be accountable to ourselves and to the world we shape for ourselves, right? You made the mess or heaven you live in, right? Ask my grandfather who fought in World War II. Freedom demands action, a call to live with integrity and purpose, knowing that the life we create is ours to bear for better or worse. You made it that way. What do you expect? Back to our friend, freedom.
When we speak of freedom, we usually talk about it as a benign and universal good, something we all strongly desire and cherish. Usually we mean freedom from constraint, such as the freedom to vote, to attain an education if we choose, to organize and protest injustices, and so on. Of course, in this sense, some of us will be freer than others. But existential notions of freedom are even broader and more fundamental. Freedom in this case refers to our radical capacity for deliberation, choice, and action, sometimes within the bounds of severe constraint. Even a slave has some choice in whether and how they'll face their enslavement, be it despair, stoic acceptance, silent rebellion, or physical resistance, or something else. In some of the worst situations imaginable, we can still discover a range of possibilities that remain open to us. So freedom involves possibilities which, through us, are transformed into actualities. But if this is true, if my choices, actions, or even inactions are largely authored by me, then the consequences weigh heavily on my shoulders. This is a huge responsibility that can be potentially overwhelming and even disorienting. Kierkegaard's concept,
especially if you're not used to it, and you're not used to people around you growing up telling you that that's actually a great thing to have the responsibility, to have the freedom, which is creativity, the freedom to point yourself and your family and your group in the direction you want to go. Right?
of dread is helpful here. So he defined dread as freedom's appearance before itself as possibility. We fear the awesome power of our own freedom. Sartre gave another example of our walking along the edge in a steep mountain cliff. He suggested that part of us naturally fears the possibility of losing our footing, slipping and falling. But part of us also fears throwing ourselves off the edge, which is something entirely within our power to do, as much as we might never want to. Combined with the possibility of
You heard that feeling? You look over the edge of like I told you I was at the Sky Bar yesterday, or our brunch. Like, what would it be like if you just jumped? Right? That's a wonder, right? And then the fear causes you not to do it. Either way, when you look out on the landscape, the vista, it's like you're in awe. Fear plus wonder is awe.
Meaninglessness. Freedom also means that we are required, both as individuals and as a collective, to create the foundations for the values that we live by. We are responsible for determining right from wrong and for being our own moral compass. Again, we may encounter anxiety and dread in the awesome freedom and responsibility related to our own self-creation. And if I'm in large part responsible for my actions, then I have no one else to blame for the consequences that follow. I am the cause for disappointment, as well as potential guilt and perhaps even shame. If the burdens of recognizing and claiming our freedom are too much, if the psychological cost is too great, we may unconsciously try to escape it by either avoiding taking responsibility or imagining ourselves as being less free than we really are.
You see that maybe in this Peter Pan syndrome a lot of men have, and women nowadays, where they don't grow up because of the burden of having to be responsible for the good and the bad and everything in between that happens in your life. Yeah. And actually, for me, the older I get, the more I'm happy I have that responsibility, even though one can get very tired and whatnot. But it's like you have more control, somewhat control in your life of it, right? But you have to be honest and have integrity.
A not infrequent example within therapy involves clients who have internalized an extremely strong medical conceptualization of their problems. In this case, someone who is depressed may anxiously insist upon receiving a formal DSM diagnosis. If we ask, why is this important to you? Someone typically says, well, then I'll know that I need to be on medication, or then I'll have an explanation as to why I feel this way.
Yeah. If people are quick to self-diagnose or want that diagnosis, it makes it easier because the unknown can bring a lot of anxiety to some people. So much so that they'll even take on a diagnosis or an identity that's not even right and exact to escape that anxiety of the unknown.
The assumption seems to be that if they have a formal DSM diagnosis, then it might suggest a genetic predisposition that was perhaps triggered by some environmental situation or event. What's interesting here is that the person imagines themselves to be far less free than they might otherwise be. Having understood their problems in this way, they feel relieved in a certain sense, though they might be more passive to the process. In therapy, for example, they wait expectantly for something to happen toward the therapist, waiting for him or her to do something to make them feel better. We see ourselves as less free to make changes than we actually are, and so feel relieved of a certain responsibility. This may diminish a certain kind of existential anxiety, but it may also come at the cost of psychological rigidity or even feelings of hopelessness. An existential therapist will work collaboratively with a client to help them recognize the various ways that they are free to think and act, to face anxieties that can arise in doing so, and to carry the burden of responsibility for the lives that they choose to live. The next video in this section.
Yeah, freedom is everywhere, right? I've heard even people say that prisoners in prison, in the pen, or even in jail, your mind, some of those people are more free than someone that has a 50-foot yacht, because that person in prison, their mind is free to travel and not burdened by this and that as much as that person who's seemingly has everything they could want physically, right? How about that? Someone sitting in prison can be more freer than someone that's on the infinite ocean, boundless ocean. Uncle Fatty with the comment: fear. It's always fear of judgment, of losing acceptance or image, of losing a perception. Always fear. To live without fear is impossible. It's delusional. Fear definitely has its purpose, right? Is fear's purpose you, or are you going to use it to get your purpose? That's my question. That is my question. This nature of sentient existence, like we spoke on, the meaninglessness, the isolation, the freedom, and the death, in a sense, makes you feel alive when you're not scared of it. They literally form the scaffolding of our life, which is can be seen as the unseen framework upon which everything drapes over, everything's augmented over. And as soon as I started personally acknowledging these four modalities, um, I wasn't in sadness or despair as much. However, instead, there was a possibility of transcendence. Laszlo made the whole table of how to become self-actualized, Maslow's needs, right. And now the way they look at that pyramid at the top says transcendence. You can transcend all these things through acceptance. You can reclaim your agency. You have choices. Hopefully this broadcast can remind you or start you on a path that, through your understanding of these modalities, we can embrace the full complexity of what it means to be alive. And in doing so, each one of us can discover that within this fundamental framework lies a quiet, profound, delicate beauty. Because the world is so beautiful. I can hear the birds right now. I don't know if you can hear it right now. It's a beautiful Sunday right now. The only thing I can ask, to keep it 100 of myself and hopefully others that are on the same path, is to live as lovingly and authentically as you can, right? That's all we can ask, right? Be brave. I love that. Perfect timing. Way to end it. Be brave, Lady Flo. Keep that up. But she blessed us, right? She's the closer. Dennis Eckersley was my favorite pitcher. Second favorite pitcher on the Oakland A's. I grew up in the 90s, loving the Oakland A's world champion. Dave Stewart, the African-American pitcher. I think he got like 30 wins one season. He would start the game, bring in Eckersley in the ninth inning, and he would close it. Well, Mrs. Flo closed it. And I appreciate everyone coming by, because Paneling is a way anyway. Maybe you agree with me. A way that some of us do cope or entertain ourselves from looking at some of these existential questions of life, of dealing with life experiences such as death, finding meaning, dealing with isolation, as well as obtaining freedom, right? It's all there. Yeah, it's all there. That's all we're doing. Much love to everyone. Tomorrow we're gonna do God spelled backwards is dog, right? That should be a fun one. Check out this thumbnail. Let me show you my pups. I mean, people are more than welcome to come up for a second if you want. It's up to you. But let me show you this. Actually, I'm about to get out of here. My pretty, pretty puppies. Check this out. God spelled backwards, dog. That bigger. Can you see him? Those are my dogs, right? Trinity on the left. She's 8 years old. We got her at the night market. She's from Yuling County, gangster from the rural area. She's very sweet, very loyal, loves her family, very protective. Then you got Junior, Whopper Junior in the middle, the Sheena Iba, who was rescued from a dog puppy mill, right? He had a horrible skin condition, looked like a lobster. His fur was falling off. He was red, had a horrible allergic reaction. We rescued him, started feeding him raw diet, which we feed our dogs raw meat and vegetables. And he looks like a show dog. Look at him. Then we have Dream, who we got last year, a year ago this month, who was tied up in front of a motorcycle shop, helmet shop for over a year. And I would pass her by every day, hoping that she would find a home and they would at least let her in, right? Because I was like, oh damn, I already have dogs. But one on the coldest night in the city last year, I had enough, and I went over there with my wife, and we told him like, we'll take your dog if you don't want it, and we took it. We took her, and ever since then, she's been my shadow. Right, that's my dream. Right. So, dogs are masters of human nature. Hopefully, us humans can be master of our own natures. Right. I love you all, and in the coming days, we'll see you next time, which is tomorrow. We'll see you next time, 8 o'clock Eastern, PM on NPC The Game. Live. Peace. Be good to each other.